3 chairs in the front row, each draped with white satin ribbon, and a single white rose. Reserved seating for people who were not coming. Everyone in the venue knew it by now. The whispers had started 20 minutes ago when the string quartet began playing the same 4 songs on repeat, waiting for a ceremony that could not start without the bride, and a bride who could not bring herself to walk down the aisle. Alone. My phone buzzed for the 43rd time. I knew the exact number because I had been counting, clinging to the desperate hope that one of those buzzes would be from my mother, my father, or my brother Marcus, some last-minute explanation. A frantic apology. Even a lie would have been better than this crushing silence. But it was just another well-wisher. Another friend asking if everything was okay. Another person who would soon know the truth that I had spent my entire life trying to hide. My own family did not think I was worth showing up for. I stood alone in the bridal suite at Hortensia Estate and Winery, staring at my reflection in the ornate floor-length mirror. The woman looking back at me was a stranger. She wore a custom Vera Wang gown that had cost more than my first car, with delicate French lace and hand-sewn pearls that caught the afternoon light. Her hair was swept up in an elegant chignon held in place by a vintage hair comb that had belonged to her grandmother. Her makeup was flawless, applied by a professional who had worked with celebrities. But her eyes told a different story. They were red-rimmed and desperate, darting constantly toward the phone clutched in her trembling hand. She looked like someone waiting for a miracle that would never come. The door burst open without warning, and I spun around, my heart leaping with irrational hope. For one absurd moment I thought it might be them. That they had come after all. That this nightmare would end and I could pretend just for one day that I had the family I had always pretended to have. But it was Martha, my wedding planner, and the expression on her face made my stomach drop. She was not alone. Behind her stood 2 people. I had not expected to see together my grandmother, Vivian Vance, looking both regal and furious in her pale blue dress, and my college roommate turned investigative journalist Rachel Kim holding her phone with the Blex on it. Screen facing me. Eleanor Rachel said, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "You need to see this. Right now." My grandmother moved slowly into the room, her cane tapping an ominous rhythm against the hardwood floor. But it was not the walk of a frail, elderly woman coming to comfort her granddaughter. It was the walk of someone who had just learned something that had transformed her grief into rage. "Show her," Vivian said to Rachel, her voice cold in a way I had never heard before. Rachel hesitated, glancing at Martha, who nodded grimly. Then she turned her phone toward me, and I saw Marcus's Instagram story posted 17 minutes ago. The image punched the air from my lungs. It was a family photo. My brother Marcus grinning widely, his arm around our mother Victoria, who was laughing at something off camera. My father Richard stood on the other side, raising a champagne glass toward the camera. In the background I could see the distinctive interior of Le Bernardin, one of the most exclusive restaurants in New York City. The kind of place where reservations were made months in advance. The kind of place you went to celebrate something important. The caption read, "Celebrating new beginnings. Sometimes the best moments are the unexpected ones. Family first, always." The timestamp showed it had been posted at 2:47 p.m. Pacific time. That would have been 5:47 p.m. in New York. My wedding ceremony had been scheduled for 3:00 p.m. They were not late. They were not stuck in traffic. They were not dealing with an emergency. They were having champagne and oysters at a 5-star restaurant 3,000 miles away while I waited for them like a fool. My hands were steady now, my breathing even. I opened my messages and scrolled to the family group chat. The last message was still my reminder from 3 weeks ago about the wedding date, time, and location. Below it 3 sets of read receipts. They had all seen it. They had all known. I began typing. Eleanor Martha said nervously. "Maybe you should wait until after the ceremony to know," I said firmly. "They posted on social media. They made this public. I am making my response public." My fingers flew across the screen. I wrote 4 sentences. 4 sentences that would change everything. I hope the champagne at Le Bernardin was worth missing your daughter's wedding for. I hope Marcus's 7-figure investment was worth 3 empty chairs at my ceremony. I hope you enjoy your spring celebration with the Ashfords. I will not be attending any future family events. Best of luck with your new beginnings. I hit send and then immediately opened Instagram. I went to my own story and posted Marcus's screenshot with a simple caption. "When your family chooses a business dinner over your wedding, no hard feelings. I have learned where I stand. #family first, right?" Rachel's eyes went wide. "Eleanor, are you sure?" "I am sure," I said, my voice steel. They humiliated me publicly. They thought I would just take it quietly the way I always have. They thought I would understand. They were wrong. My phone immediately exploded with notifications, but I silenced it and handed it to Rachel. "Hold on to this for me. I have a wedding to attend." Vivian was looking at me with something like awe. "That is my granddaughter," she said softly. Martha cleared her throat. "Eleanor, the guests are getting restless. If you are ready, we really should begin the ceremony now." I looked at her, at Rachel, at my grandmother. These three women in this moment had shown me more love and loyalty than my parents had shown me in 30 years. They had told me the truth even when it hurt. They had stood with me. They had seen me. The 2 years that followed my wedding were transformative in ways I could never have anticipated. I threw myself into my work with a focus and determination that surprised even me. Stellar Dynamics, the digital media company I had founded 3 years earlier, had been doing well, but I had been holding back, playing it safe. After the wedding, something unleashed in me. I stopped seeking approval and started trusting my instincts. We landed a major contract with a national retail chain 6 months after the wedding. Then, another with a tech startup that went viral. My team grew from 5 people to 20, then 40. We moved from a cramped office above a coffee shop to a sleek space in downtown Portland, with floor-to-ceiling windows and an open concept design. Lena, who had been my best friend since college, became my director of marketing. She was brilliant at her job, understanding social media and brand strategy in ways that constantly impressed me. More than that, she believed in me with a ferocity that sometimes took my breath away. On days when I doubted myself, when imposter syndrome crept in, she would march into my office and remind me of every obstacle we had overcome, every client we had won, every impossible deadline we had met. Samuel was my rock through it all. He had his own successful architectural firm, but he never competed with me or made me feel like my success threatened him. Instead, he celebrated every victory, held me through every setback, and reminded me daily that I was worthy of love just as I was not because of what I achieved. During those 2 years, my parents and Marcus existed in my life only as occasional awkward phone calls. My mother would call every few months, always with some excuse about how busy they had been. Never an apology, never an acknowledgement of the wedding they had missed. Just superficial questions about how I was doing, followed by long stories about Marcus and his accomplishments. I kept the conversations brief and polite. I did not seek them out. I did not need them anymore, or so I told myself. Then came the deal that changed everything. It was a Wednesday afternoon in late October, when Naomi Blake, one of our early investors who had believed in Stellar Dynamics when we were just an idea, called with news. "Eleanor," she said, her voice vibrating with excitement. "Are you sitting down? We had been courting a major acquisition offer from a conglomerate that owned several successful digital media platforms. They wanted to buy a controlling stake in Stellar Dynamics, while keeping me and my team in leadership positions. The offer was more than I had ever imagined possible. $45 million. When Naomi told me the number, I actually laughed. It sounded absurd. "Impossible. I am serious, Eleanor," she said. "They see what you have built. They see your vision. This is real." That Friday, we finalized the deal. My team and I gathered in our conference room, champagne bottles already chilling in ice buckets. When I announced the news, the room erupted. People were crying, hugging, shouting with joy. These were people who had worked 80-hour weeks with me, who had believed in my vision when it was just sketches on a whiteboard, who had turned down higher-paying jobs at bigger companies because they wanted to be part of something we were building together. Lena grabbed my shoulders and looked me dead in the eye. "You did this, Eleanor. You. Not anyone else. You." I felt it then, the full weight of what we had accomplished. I was 29 years old, and I had just secured a deal that would not only make me financially independent, but would also allow me to expand Stellar Dynamics in ways I had only dreamed about. We could hire more diverse talent. We could take creative risks. We could make a real impact in the industry. That night, I posted a photo on Instagram for the first time in months. It was not my usual carefully curated business content. It was a picture of my team, all of us holding champagne glasses, grinning like fools. The caption was simple. "When you build something from nothing with people who believe in you, magic happens. Grateful for this team and this journey." The post got thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. Friends and colleagues congratulated me. Industry leaders reached out. My phone buzzed constantly with messages of support and celebration, but nothing from my family. Not a word. I told myself I did not care. I told myself I had moved beyond needing their validation. But late that night, alone in my home office while Samuel slept upstairs, I found myself scrolling through my mother's Instagram profile. What I saw made my blood run cold. The most recent post was from 2 days ago. It was a carousel of photos from a family vacation in the Bahamas. Crystal blue water, white sand beaches, My parents Marcus, his wife Serafina, and their two little girls all looking tanned and blissfully happy. The caption read, "Blessed to spend quality time with our son and these precious grandbabies. Family is everything. Family is everything." I scrolled through more posts. Dinner at an expensive seafood restaurant. The girls at a luxury resort kids club. Marcus and my father deep-sea fishing. My mother and Serafina getting couples massages. Every photo radiated affluence and leisure. I did the math in my head. A week in the Bahamas at a resort like that with a family of 6. Flights, activities, meals. Easily $20,000, probably more. My parents had retired 5 years ago. My father had been a middle manager at a manufacturing company. My mother had been a part-time administrative assistant. They had always been comfortable but not wealthy. Their retirement savings should have been modest but sufficient. So where was this money coming from? I kept scrolling, going back through months of posts. A family trip to Disneyland. Marcus's daughters in private school uniforms. A new luxury SUV in Serafina's driveway. Marcus at a golf club with my father, both of them wearing expensive polo shirts and holding premium clubs. The realization hit me like a physical blow. They were funding Marcus's lifestyle. My parents were pouring their retirement savings into maintaining the image of success for their son, even as he clearly could not afford it himself. I knew Marcus's consulting business had been struggling. He had mentioned it in passing during one of those awkward phone calls, though he had quickly changed the subject. They had chosen to spend their limited resources on him. On luxury vacations and private schools and golf club memberships. While I had not received even a text message acknowledging the biggest professional achievement of my life, something inside me snapped. Not with anger, not yet. With clarity. Brutal, undeniable clarity. They would never see me. They would never prioritize me. They would never celebrate my achievements unless those achievements somehow served Marcus. And I was done waiting for them to change. The next morning I woke up with a plan. It was not a plan born of revenge, though I will not pretend that element was entirely absent. It was a plan born of liberation. If they would not see my value, I would invest in people who did. If they would not celebrate my success, I would use that success to celebrate others. I called my financial advisor and my attorney. I told them what I wanted to do, and while they asked if I was certain, neither tried to talk me out of it. Within a week, the paperwork was drawn up. But first I did something I had been wanting to do for 2 years. I went to a Porsche dealership. The salesman's eyes lit up when I told him what I was looking for. I wanted something bold, something powerful, something that announced its presence. We settled on an onyx black Porsche 911 Turbo S. It was sleek and aggressive with leather interior and every premium feature available. The price tag was $180,000. I wrote the check without hesitation. The day I picked up the car, I drove it straight home. My house was a modern architectural masterpiece that Samuel had helped me design, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows situated on 3 acres of private property with a view of the mountains. I parked the Porsche in the circular driveway just as the sun was setting, casting everything in golden light. I took a photo. The car looked like a piece of art against the backdrop of my home and the mountains beyond. I posted it to Instagram with a caption that I had carefully crafted. From dreams left behind to legacies built forward. Grateful for every step of this journey. #Stellar Dynamics. #freedom. Then I turned off my phone and went inside to have dinner with Samuel. We did not talk about my family. We talked about our future, about the trip to Japan we were planning, about the possibility of starting a family of our own someday. We talked about all the things that mattered, and for the first time in my life, my parents' absence from the conversation did not leave a hole. 3 days later, my phone exploded with activity. I had turned it back on that morning, not expecting anything in particular. Instead, I had 47 missed calls, 33 text messages, and dozens of social media notifications. The first text was from my mother. "Call me immediately. This is urgent." The second was from my father. "Eleanor, we need to talk about your recent behavior. This is a family matter." The third was from Marcus. "What the hell are you trying to prove?" I sat at my kitchen counter, coffee growing cold in my hand, and read through them all. The messages escalated from demanding to angry to almost desperate. My mother wanted to know where I had gotten the money for such an extravagant purchase. My father wanted to know why I was flaunting my wealth on social media. Marcus wanted to know why I was trying to make him look bad. None of them congratulated me on the business deal. None of them acknowledged Stellar Dynamics, or the team I had built, or the years of hard work that had led to this moment. They only saw the car, the house, the visible symbols of success, and they felt threatened by them. The final message was from my mother, sent an hour ago. Your father and I insist on a family meeting. This Sunday at our house. 3 o'clock. Do not be late. We have important matters to discuss. I stared at that message for a long time. The old Eleanor would have immediately started preparing excuses, thinking of ways to avoid conflict. The old Eleanor would have felt guilty for making them uncomfortable for existing too loudly in a space they wanted to keep for Marcus. But I was not the old Eleanor anymore. I texted back a single word. Fine. Then I opened my voice memo app and started a new recording. I was going to that meeting, but I was going on my own terms. And I was going to make sure I had evidence of whatever they said. Samuel found me sitting there, phone in hand, jaw clenched. He knew immediately what had happened. He had seen the posts, had watched my family's social media presence over the years. He poured himself a coffee and sat down next to me. Do you want me to come with you? I shook my head. No. This is something I need to do alone. But thank you. He nodded, respecting my decision. Just remember, he said gently, you do not owe them anything. Not an explanation, not an apology, not a piece of what you have built. You did this yourself. I know, I said. And that is exactly what I am going to tell them. Sunday came faster than I expected. I dressed carefully for the occasion, choosing a tailored black pantsuit that I had bought for a business conference. Professional, powerful, unassailable. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back at me. 2 years ago, I would have worn something softer, more apologetic. Now I looked like someone who did not need anyone's approval. I drove the Porsche to my parents' house. The route was familiar. I had grown up in this neighborhood, in this house. It was a traditional colonial-style home in a comfortable suburb, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and appearances mattered enormously. When I pulled into the driveway, I could see my mother and father standing on the front porch watching. They were not smiling. My mother's arms were crossed tightly over her chest. My father stood with his hands in his pockets, his jaw set in a hard line. I took a deep breath, checked that my phone was recording in my purse, and got out of the car. The Porsche door closed with a satisfying thunk that echoed in the quiet suburban street. Several neighbors were conveniently outside, tending to gardens or checking mailboxes, all of them casting curious glances toward my car. I could only imagine the neighborhood gossip this would fuel. My mother was the first to speak as I approached. You certainly know how to make an entrance, she said. Her voice was cold-clipped. I could not tell if she was impressed or disgusted. Hello, Mom. Dad? I kept my tone neutral as I climbed the steps to the porch. Thank you for having me over. It has been a while. My father did not return my greeting. He simply turned and walked into the house, clearly expecting me to follow. My mother lingered for just a moment, her eyes scanning me from head to toe, taking in my expensive suit, my designer handbag, my confident posture. For just a second, I thought I saw something flicker in her expression. Surprise, maybe? Or recognition that I was no longer the eager-to-please daughter who had always bent to accommodate their needs. Inside the house looked exactly as I remembered it. The same beige walls, the same family photos lining the hallway, though I noticed with a pang that most of them featured Marcus. His graduation photos, his wedding photos, photos of his daughters. I was in a few, but they were older, from childhood, before the hierarchy had been so firmly established. The dining room table had been set not for a meal but for a meeting. Marcus and Serafina were already seated, both of them looking uncomfortable. Marcus would not meet my eyes. Serafina offered a tight, nervous smile that I did not return. I did not sit down. Instead, I stood at the head of the table, placing my purse on the polished surface. The gesture was deliberate. I was not here to be lectured. I was here to finally have my say. My father cleared his throat. Eleanor, this family meeting is about your recent behavior on social media and your display of wealth. It reflects poorly on all of us. I raised an eyebrow. My display of wealth? That car? My mother interjected, her voice sharp. That house. The posts about your company. It is inappropriate. You are making Marcus look bad. There it was. The real issue. Not that I had succeeded, but that my success made Marcus look inadequate by comparison. I see, I said slowly. So, we are having a family meeting because I posted a photo of a car I bought with my own money. The money I earned. From the company I built. That is the problem, Marcus finally spoke up, his voice tight with frustration. You always have to prove something, Eleanor. You always have to show off how special you are, how successful you are. Some of us are just trying to live normal lives. Normal lives, I repeated. My voice was getting louder despite my efforts to stay calm. Normal lives funded by Mom and Dad's retirement savings. Normal lives that include week-long vacations in the Bahamas and private schools and luxury cars. That kind of normal. The room went silent. Serafina's eyes went wide. Marcus's face turned red. How dare you, my father started, but I cut him off. No, I said firmly. No. You asked me here. You demanded that I come. So now you are going to listen. I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, the voice memo still recording. Then I began to speak, and once I started I could not stop. The words poured out of me like water from a broken dam. Let me tell you about normal lives. Let me tell you about the normal life I lived. The one where I got myself to every school event, because you were always at one of Marcus's games. The normal life where I applied for scholarships alone, because you were helping Marcus with his college applications. The normal life where I started a business with money I borrowed from Grandma Vivian because you had already given your savings to Marcus for his consulting firm's startup. My mother tried to interrupt. Eleanor, that is not fair, I held up my hand. I am not finished. You want to talk about fairness, let us talk about fairness. Where were you at my high school graduation? You arrived an hour late because of Marcus's baseball game. Where were you when I won the scholarship to Stanford? You missed the ceremony because Marcus needed help moving. Where were you when I launched Stellar Dynamics 3 years ago? You were at Serafina's birthday dinner. I paused, letting that sink in. Then I looked directly at my mother and I asked the question that had been burning in my chest for 2 years. Where were you at my wedding? The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's face had gone pale. My father looked away. Marcus was staring at his hands. You were not there, I continued, my voice breaking slightly despite my efforts to stay strong. You were not there on the most important day of my life. No call, no text, no explanation. Just 3 empty chairs where my family should have been sitting. Do you have any idea what that felt like? To walk down the aisle alone except for Grandma Vivian while every single person in that room could see that my own parents and brother had chosen not to come. Victoria tried again, her voice softer now. Marcus had an important pitch meeting that day. It was crucial for his career. And my wedding was not crucial. My voice was rising now, all pretense of calm gone. My wedding to the man I love was not important enough to reschedule a meeting for. Nothing I have ever done has been important enough, has it? Because Marcus always comes first. Marcus always needs you more. Marcus is the one whose success matters. That is not true, my father said, but even he sounded unconvinced. Is it not? I turned to look at the family photos on the wall. Tell me, Dad, when was the last time you came to any event of mine? When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? Not to ask me if I could help Marcus with something, or to tell me about Marcus's latest achievement. He had no answer. I turned back to the table. You want to know why I posted that car, that house, those achievements? Because I am done being invisible. I am done pretending it does not hurt that you have never celebrated me the way you celebrate him. I am done making myself smaller so Marcus can feel bigger. Marcus exploded out of his chair. This is exactly what I am talking about. You cannot just be happy for yourself. You have to rub it in everyone's faces. Rub it in your face, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Marcus, I built a company. I worked 18-hour days for years. I sacrificed sleep, relationships, peace of mind. I earned every single thing I have. And when I finally achieved something worth celebrating, something that most people never accomplish in their entire lives, not one person in my biological family congratulated me. Not one. Because you do not need it, my mother said quietly. You have always been so independent, so self-sufficient. Marcus needs our support more than you do. And there it was. The core belief that had shaped my entire childhood, my entire relationship with my family. Marcus needs us more, so Eleanor gets less. Marcus's dreams matter more, so Eleanor's dreams can wait. Marcus's success is our success, so Eleanor's success is just Eleanor showing off. I looked at my mother, really looked at her, and saw her clearly for the first time. She believed what she was saying. She genuinely thought that because I had learned to survive without their support, I did not deserve it. That my independence was not a strength I had developed out of necessity, but evidence that I did not need love and validation as much as Marcus did. You are right, Mom, I said softly. I do not need your support. I have not needed it for a very long time. I have learned to live without it. But the fact that I can live without it does not mean I should have had to. I reached into my purse and pulled out a document I had brought with me. It was in a manila folder, official and legal looking. I placed it on the table in front of them. What is this? My father asked suspiciously. This, I said, is a trust document. I am establishing the Astria Scholarship Fund for young women pursuing careers in digital media and communications. The initial endowment is $25 million. Marcus's jaw literally dropped. $25 million, yes, I interrupted. $25 million of my own money earned from my own work invested in the future of women who remind me of myself. Women who are talented and hardworking and brilliant, but who do not have families who believe in them. Women who need someone to see their potential and invest in it. My mother had tears in her eyes now. Eleanor, we have always believed in you. No, I said firmly, but not unkindly. You have not. You have taken me for granted. You have assumed I would always be fine because I always figured things out on my own. You have celebrated Marcus's mediocre achievements while ignoring my exceptional ones. You have given him every advantage while expecting me to create my own. And then when I succeeded anyway, you resented me for it. That is not true, my father protested weakly. Is it not? Then why are we here? Why did you demand this meeting? Was it to congratulate me on the Stellar Dynamics acquisition? Was it to tell me you were proud of me? Or was it to scold me for making Marcus look bad? None of them had an answer. I picked up the trust document. The fund is named after my high school media arts teacher, Miss Sophia Thorne. She came to every one of my exhibitions when you could not make it. She wrote my recommendation letters for college. She believed in me when my own family was too busy. This money, this legacy, it goes to people like her and students like I was. It is locked in a trust. The board approved it last week. It is done. But we need help, Marcus finally said, his voice breaking. Eleanor, I am 3 months behind on my mortgage. The girls' tuition is overdue. I am about to lose everything. I looked at my brother, this man who had been given every advantage, every bit of support and encouragement, every dollar my parents could spare, and I felt something I had not expected to feel. Pity. I am sorry to hear that, Marcus. I truly am. But what you need is not my money. What you needed was for Mom and Dad to teach you how to stand on your own 2 feet instead of funding a lifestyle you could not afford. What you needed was to face consequences and learn from your mistakes, instead of having someone always there to bail you out. He slumped back in his chair, defeated. My mother stood up, her voice rising with desperation. Eleanor, think about your nieces. They are just children. They do not deserve to suffer because of this. It was a manipulation tactic, appealing to my emotions, trying to make me feel guilty. The old Eleanor would have caved. But I had learned something important over the past 2 years. I had learned that setting boundaries was not cruelty, and that saying no was not the same as causing harm. My nieces will be fine, I said calmly. They will attend excellent public schools. They will learn valuable lessons about living within their means. They will grow up understanding that love and security do not come from luxury vacations and private school prestige. Those are actually better lessons than the ones they are learning now. My father pushed a piece of paper across the table toward me. It was a loan document already filled out with Marcus's information. We need you to co-sign this loan, just to help him get back on his feet. I did not even look at the document. No. The single word hung in the air like a verdict. Eleanor, this is your family, my father said, his voice taking on the authoritative tone he had used when I was a child. You have a responsibility. I picked up my phone from the table, stopping the recording. Then I looked at each of them in turn. Family, I repeated. You want to talk to me about family? Let me tell you what I have learned about family in the past 2 years. I pointed to the trust document. This is family. Investing in people's dreams, believing in their potential, showing up for their important moments. Samuel is family. He was at my side on my wedding day when you were not. He celebrates every victory and supports me through every challenge. Lena is family. She has worked 18-hour days with me, believed in my vision, defended me against critics. Grandma Vivian is family. She was the only blood relative who cared enough to attend my wedding. I grabbed my purse and stood up. You are not my family anymore. You are people I happen to be related to. There is a difference. My mother reached out toward me, actual tears streaming down her face now. Eleanor, please. Do not do this. We can fix this. We can be better. I looked at her hand extended toward me, and I felt the weight of 30 years of disappointment pressing against my chest. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to think that this moment of crisis would finally wake them up, make them see what they had done, how they had hurt me. But I had learned that people do not change because you want them to. They change because they want to change. And even now, in this moment of confrontation, not one of them had actually apologized. Not one of them had acknowledged the wedding they missed without any excuse or explanation. They were not sorry they had hurt me. They were sorry that I was no longer available to be used. If you want to fix this, I said quietly, start by going to therapy. Start by examining why you have always treated Marcus's needs as more important than mine. Start by asking yourselves why you thought it was acceptable to miss my wedding. And maybe in a year or 2 after you have done that work, I will consider having a supervised conversation with you. What does that mean? My father demanded. It means that I will not be attending family gatherings. I will not be responding to phone calls or text messages unless they come from Grandma Vivian. I will not be providing financial support, or co-signing loans, or bailing anyone out of their self-created problems. I am setting boundaries, and if you cannot respect them, we will have no relationship at all. You cannot just cut us off, Marcus said desperately. We are your family. Watch me. I walked toward the door, and with each step I felt lighter. My mother called after me, her voice breaking. Eleanor, please. We love you. I stopped at the doorway and turned back one last time. Love is a verb, Mom. It is not just something you say. It is something you do. You show up. You celebrate. You support. You prioritize. You have never done any of those things for me. So forgive me if I do not believe you. Then I walked out of that house for what I knew would be the last time in a very long while. I got into my Porsche, started the engine, and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see them standing on the porch watching me leave. My mother was crying. My father had his arm around her. Marcus stood apart from them, his face unreadable. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel vindicated. I felt exhausted and sad and strangely free all at the same time. When I got home, Samuel was waiting for me. He took one look at my face and opened his arms. I walked into his embrace and finally let myself cry. Not for what I had lost, but for what I had never really had to begin with. It is done, I whispered against his chest. I told them everything. He held me tighter. I am proud of you. And somehow those 4 words meant more than any praise my parents had ever given Marcus. The aftermath of that confrontation was brutal, in ways I had not fully anticipated. Within hours of leaving my parents' house, my phone became a battlefield. Text messages poured in, each one more desperate or angry than the last. My mother, how can you abandon your family like this? After everything we have done for you, my father, this is childish and vindictive. You are better than this, Eleanor. Marcus, you are going to regret this. You are going to end up alone and miserable. Serafina surprisingly sent a different kind of message. I understand why you are angry, but please think about the girls. They ask about their aunt. That one hurt the most because it was the most genuine. But I had to remember that protecting myself was not the same as hurting my nieces. They had parents. Those parents needed to take responsibility for their own choices. I blocked their numbers. All of them except Grandma Vivian. 2 days later, a letter arrived from a law firm. My parents' attorney had sent a legal document claiming that I had a moral obligation to support my family and suggesting that my refusal could be construed as elder abuse given their financial dependence on potential family support. I called my own attorney, who laughed when he read it. This is not enforceable in any way. They have no legal claim to your money. This is intimidation, pure and simple. I know, I said. But it still hurts. Of course it does, he replied gently. They are weaponizing the legal system to manipulate you. That is abuse, Eleanor. You are doing the right thing by maintaining your boundaries. The breaking point came a week later when local news picked up the story. Somehow a journalist had gotten wind of the family drama, probably through one of the gossiping neighbors who had seen me arrive in the Porsche. The headline read, "Tech Success Story or Family Betrayal. Local Entrepreneur Refuses to Help Struggling Brother." The article was slanted, painting me as a heartless millionaire who had turned her back on her family in their time of need. It quoted anonymous sources, clearly my parents or Marcus, talking about how I had always been difficult, always seeking attention, always jealous of my brother's normal, humble life. I was devastated. My professional reputation was being attacked. Stellar Dynamics' social media was flooded with comments from people who did not know the full story, calling me selfish and cruel. Lena burst into my office that afternoon, her laptop open to a Twitter thread. Eleanor, we need to respond to this. We cannot let this narrative stand. I do not know how to fight this without looking defensive, I admitted. If I tell the truth, I look like I am airing dirty laundry. If I stay silent, people assume I am guilty. Then let someone else tell the truth, Lena said. Within 24 hours, she had orchestrated something remarkable. Friends who had been at my wedding started posting on social media. Photos of the 3 empty chairs. Stories about how they had witnessed my parents' absence. Samuel's family released a statement about how they had welcomed me into their family after seeing how I had been treated by my own. But the real turning point came from an unexpected source. Grandma Vivian, 82 years old, and barely comfortable with email, asked her grandson's wife to help her write a Facebook post. It went viral. I am Vivian Vance, Eleanor's grandmother. I have watched this family dynamic for 30 years and I can no longer stay silent. My granddaughter worked 3 jobs to put herself through college while her parents paid for her brother's education. She started a business with money I loaned her because her parents had already given their savings to her brother's failed startup. She invited her family to her wedding and they chose not to attend because her brother had a work meeting. A meeting, not a crisis. A meeting that could have been rescheduled. My granddaughter has achieved extraordinary things despite her family, not because of them. And now when she finally sets boundaries to protect herself, she is called cruel. I am ashamed of how my son and daughter-in-law have treated this remarkable woman. Eleanor, if you are reading this, I am proud of you. I have always been proud of you. The post was shared thousands of times. The comments section filled with people sharing their own stories of family favoritism, of being the overlooked child, of finally finding the courage to walk away from toxic relationships. Then the Cascade Chronicle, the same local paper that had published the first article, ran a follow-up investigation. They interviewed people who had worked with me, clients who praised my professionalism and integrity. They found my college professors who talked about my work ethic and talent. They even interviewed Miss Sophia Thorne, my high school media arts teacher, who spoke emotionally about how I had persevered despite having no family support. The new headline: Building Success from Nothing, Eleanor Vance's Story of Resilience. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Suddenly, I was not the villain. I was the survivor. My Instagram and LinkedIn were flooded with messages of support from people who understood, who had lived through similar dynamics, who saw themselves in my story. But the victory felt hollow because it required exposing wounds I would have preferred to keep private. I had wanted to simply move forward with my life. Instead, my family drama was now public knowledge, dissected by strangers online. Samuel found me late one night sitting in my home office, staring at my laptop screen filled with comments. "You do not have to read all of this," he said gently. "I know, but some of these messages are beautiful. People telling me their stories, thanking me for speaking up." One woman said she finally left her abusive parents after reading about my wedding. She said if I could walk down the aisle alone, she could walk away from people who hurt her. "Then it was worth it," Samuel said. "Your pain is helping other people heal." Meanwhile, the consequences for Marcus were unfolding exactly as I had predicted. The foreclosure on his house went through. He and Serafina had to move into a modest rental in a different school district. The girls were enrolled in public school, which, according to Serafina's now private Instagram, they were actually enjoying. There were posts about new friends, art projects, and school activities that looked remarkably normal and happy. My parents sold their house and moved into a smaller condo. They could no longer afford the lifestyle they had been maintaining. The luxury vacations stopped. The expensive dinners ended. They had to face the reality of their actual financial situation. I felt no satisfaction in their struggles. I felt sad that it had come to this, that they had made such poor choices, that they had valued appearance over sustainability. But I did not feel guilty. Their situation was not my responsibility to fix. What I did feel was a growing sense of peace. As the weeks passed and I maintained my boundaries, I began to notice changes in myself. I slept better. I laughed more easily. I stopped checking my phone obsessively, waiting for criticism or demands. I started therapy with Dr. Eris, a clinical psychologist who specialized in family trauma and estrangement. In our first session, I broke down completely. "I am afraid I did the wrong thing. What if I am just as selfish as they say I am?" Dr. Eris leaned forward in her chair. "Tell me, Eleanor, if a young woman came to you and told you her family had treated her the way yours treated you, what would you tell her?" "I would tell her she deserves better. That she deserves to be celebrated and supported. That setting boundaries is not selfish, it is self-preservation. And why would that advice not apply to you?" I had no answer. Over the following months, therapy helped me understand something crucial. I had been conditioned from childhood to believe that my needs were less important, that asking for basic respect and recognition was demanding too much, that my independence meant I did not deserve support. Unpacking those beliefs was painful but liberating. Dr. Eris introduced me to the concept of chosen family. "You get to decide who your people are," she said. "Blood relation does not automatically qualify someone for a place in your life. Trust, respect, reciprocity, those are what make real family bonds." I started to build that chosen family more intentionally. Samuel and I hosted dinner parties with Lena, Naomi, and other close friends. We celebrated birthdays and achievements. We supported each other through challenges. We created the kind of family dynamic I had always wanted but never had. Grandma Vivian became even more important to me during this time. We started having weekly video calls, and once a month I would drive to her assisted living facility to take her out for lunch. She told me stories about her own life, about times when she had to make hard choices, about people she had loved and lost. "You are stronger than your parents," she told me one afternoon over tea. "You inherited that from me, not from them. Your grandfather, God rest his soul, he knew how to love people for who they were, not for who he wanted them to be. Your parents never learned that. Do you think they will ever understand what they did wrong? I asked. She considered this carefully. Maybe. But Eleanor, you cannot wait for their understanding to move forward with your life. You have already waited long enough. She was right, of course. I had spent 30 years waiting for them to see me. I was done waiting. As autumn turned to winter, I made a decision that would define the next chapter of my life. I was going to fully invest in the Astraea Scholarship Fund, not just financially but personally. I wanted to mentor the young women who received the scholarships to give them the guidance and support I had never received. Lena helped me set up an application process that focused not on perfect grades or impressive resumes, but on talent, passion, and need. We were looking for young women who had faced obstacles, who had persevered despite lack of support, who had raw potential waiting to be developed. The first round of applications came in, and reading them broke my heart and filled it at the same time. So many brilliant young women with stories like mine. Families who did not believe in them. Financial struggles that forced them to work full-time while going to school. Talents that had been dismissed or discouraged. We selected 10 recipients for the first year. Each would receive full tuition, support, mentorship, internship opportunities at Stellar Dynamics or partner companies, and access to professional development resources. The day we announced the recipients, I met them all via video call. One of them, a 17-year-old named Maya Lopez from a small town in Oregon, reminded me so much of myself at that age. She had taught herself video editing and cinematography using free software and a borrowed camera. She had created a documentary about her community that had won a regional festival, but her family dismissed it as a hobby, not a real career path. When I told her she had been selected, she cried. I cried too. "Thank you," she said through tears. "My parents think this is a waste of time. They want me to study nursing or teaching something practical. But I want to tell stories. I want to make films that matter." "Then that is what you are going to do," I told her, "and I am going to help you do it." After the call, Lena found me in my office wiping away tears. "You are changing lives, Eleanor. You know that, right? You are giving these girls what you never had." "I know," I said. "And it feels better than anything I have ever accomplished in business." That Thanksgiving, Samuel and I decided to host our own celebration instead of dealing with the complicated question of whose family to visit. We invited Lena, Naomi, Dr. Eris, and Grandma Vivian. We also invited Maya, who was now enrolled in a local community college and interning at Stellar Dynamics twice a week. The dinner was intimate and warm, full of laughter and genuine connection. We went around the table sharing what we were grateful for. When it came to my turn, I looked around at these people who had chosen to be in my life, who had supported me through the hardest year I had ever experienced. "I am grateful for all of you," I said. "For showing me what family really means. For teaching me that I deserve to be celebrated, not just tolerated. For helping me understand that setting boundaries is an act of self-love, not selfishness." Grandma Vivian raised her glass. "To Eleanor, who had the courage to walk away from people who did not value her and the wisdom to build a life with people who do." We all drank to that. After dinner, Maya showed us her latest project, a short documentary about 3 generations of women in rural Oregon who had fought to keep their family farm running. It was beautifully shot and edited, emotionally resonant and professionally executed. She had a real gift. "This is extraordinary, Maya," I told her. "You have such a strong voice as a filmmaker." She blushed. "I learned a lot of this by watching your early work," she admitted. "The brand films you made before Stellar Dynamics became huge. They were on your old portfolio site. The way you capture emotion and tell stories through visuals, it is incredible." I was touched that she had gone back and studied my work. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The evening news played in the background as we cleaned up from dinner. A segment came on about successful young entrepreneurs giving back to their communities. To my surprise, they featured the Astraea Scholarship Fund. They interviewed one of our recipients, showed clips of Maya's documentary, and talked about the impact we were already making. The anchor concluded with, "In a world where success is often measured by personal wealth, Eleanor Vance reminds us that true legacy is measured by the lives we change and the doors we open for others." Samuel put his arm around me as we watched. "You did this," he said quietly. "You took your pain and turned it into purpose." As winter deepened, my parents made one final attempt to reconcile. It came not through angry demands or legal threats, but through a handwritten letter from my mother delivered to my office. "Dear Eleanor," it began. "Your father and I have been attending therapy as you suggested. It has been painful to confront the ways we have failed you. We are beginning to understand that we treated you as if your strength meant you did not need our love, when the truth is that we should have loved you more, not less, for your resilience. We do not expect forgiveness. We do not expect you to help Marcus financially, or to resume a relationship with us. We simply want you to know that we see now what we could not see before. We see how we hurt you. We see how we failed you. We see how remarkable you are, and we are ashamed that we did not celebrate you the way you deserved. We are sorry, Eleanor. For the wedding we missed. For every achievement we dismissed. For every time we made you feel invisible. For teaching you that you had to earn love instead of simply receiving it. Whether or not you ever speak to us again, please know that we are proud of you. We always should have been. I read the letter 3 times sitting alone in my office long after everyone else had gone home. I cried, but they were different tears than I had shed before. These were not tears of anger or betrayal. They were tears of grief for what could have been for the relationship we might have had if they had done this emotional work 30 years ago. But I also felt something unexpected. Relief. Not because I thought we could rebuild our relationship, not because I believed this apology fixed everything, but because they had finally acknowledged the truth. They had finally seen what they had done. I showed the letter to Dr. Eris in our next session. What do you think she asked? I think it is a start, I said carefully. I think they are genuinely trying to understand. But I do not think I am ready to let them back into my life. Maybe someday. Maybe not. And I am okay with that uncertainty. That is very mature, Eleanor. You are allowed to acknowledge their growth while still protecting yourself. I wrote back a short response. Thank you for the letter. I appreciate the therapy work you are doing. I need more time before I am ready to have any direct contact. Please respect that boundary. Sincerely, Eleanor. It was not warm, but it was not cruel either. It was honest. And honesty, I had learned, was the most important thing I could offer both to them and to myself. A year passed. The Estrella Scholarship Fund grew, adding 15 more recipients in the second year. Maya's documentary was accepted into a prestigious film festival. 2 other recipients landed internships at major media companies. The success stories multiplied, each one a validation that my decision to invest in others rather than bail out my family had been the right one. Stellar Dynamics continued to thrive. We opened a second office in San Francisco and began developing original content in addition to our client work. The team I had built was incredible, full of passionate, talented people who shared my vision for creating meaningful digital media. My relationship with Samuel deepened in ways I had not thought possible. We talked about starting a family of our own, about what kind of parents we wanted to be, about breaking the cycles of favoritism and conditional love that had defined my childhood. On a crisp October evening, almost exactly 3 years after my wedding, I received an invitation to accept the Community Leadership Award at the Portland Arts Center. It was one of the most prestigious recognitions in the city, honoring individuals who had made significant contributions to the arts and community development. The ceremony was elegant, held in the Art Center's main gallery, surrounded by stunning contemporary works. Samuel was there, of course, looking handsome in his suit and beaming with pride. Lena, Naomi, Dr. Eris, and the entire Stellar Dynamics team filled several rows. Maya was there with her camera, documenting the evening for a profile piece she was creating about women entrepreneurs. And in the front row, in a seat of honor, sat Grandma Vivian. She was 85 now, a bit more frail but still sharp as ever. She wore a deep purple dress that made her look regal, and when our eyes met, she winked at me. When they called my name, I walked to the stage, feeling a sense of completion I had not known I was searching for. The presenter read my accomplishments, talked about the scholarship fund, mentioned Stellar Dynamics' commitment to diverse storytelling and ethical business practices. But what he said at the end struck me most deeply. Eleanor Vance has shown us that family is not just who we are born to, but who we choose to stand beside. She has built a legacy not of resentment but of generosity, not of bitterness but of hope. She reminds us that the highest purpose of success is to lift others up. I accepted the award, a beautiful piece of blown glass that caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the stage. Then I stepped to the microphone to give my acceptance speech. I had prepared remarks, but in that moment, looking out at the people who had supported me, I set aside my notes and spoke from my heart. 3 years ago, I stood in a different kind of spotlight. I was about to walk down the aisle at my wedding, and I was checking my phone obsessively, hoping my family would show up. They did not. In that moment, I felt like the most invisible person in the world. But you know what? I discovered I was only invisible to people who had never really tried to see me. I gestured to the audience. These people saw me. My grandmother, who has never missed a single important moment in my life. My husband, who chose to build a life with me based on who I am, not who my family wanted me to be. My best friend and business partner, who believed in my vision when it was just sketches on a napkin. My mentor, who taught me that asking for help is not weakness but wisdom. My team, who worked tirelessly to bring our creative dreams to life. And the brilliant young women of the Estrella Scholarship Fund, who remind me every day why representation and support matter so much. I paused, collecting my thoughts. For a long time, I measured my worth by the approval I could not get. I worked harder, achieved more, hoping that someday I would be enough. But here is what I learned. I was always enough. I just needed to stop asking the wrong people to validate that truth. This award is not just mine. It belongs to everyone who has ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or invisible in their own family. It belongs to every person who had to become their own cheerleader, because no one else would. It belongs to the Maya Lopezes of the world, the talented young women who are told their dreams do not matter but who pursue them anyway. This is for all of us who learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to see your value and walk toward people who do. The applause was thunderous. People were standing, some crying, many nodding in recognition of their own stories reflected in mine. Maya was filming with tears streaming down her face. Lena was openly sobbing. Even Samuel, my steady, composed husband, had to wipe his eyes. But the moment that mattered most was when I looked at Grandma Vivian. She was standing too, despite her cane, despite her age. And she was smiling at me with such pure pride and love that I felt it like a physical warmth spreading through my chest. After the ceremony, there was a reception. People approached me all evening, sharing their own stories, thanking me for speaking openly about family estrangement and chosen family. Several offered to donate to the scholarship fund. A documentary filmmaker asked if I would be interested in participating in a series about women building businesses after overcoming adversity. As the evening wound down, I found myself standing alone for a moment on the art center's terrace, looking out over the city lights. Portland glittered below me, full of possibility and life. Somewhere out there were my parents and Marcus, living their own lives, dealing with their own consequences. I hoped they were okay. I hoped they had learned and grown. But their journey was no longer mine to manage or fix. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to find Maya joining me on the terrace. She was still holding her camera, but had stopped filming. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. Of course. When I first got the scholarship, I thought the best part would be the money. And do not get me wrong, having my tuition paid is life-changing. But the real gift is having someone believe in me. My parents still do not understand what I am doing. They think I am wasting my time on art when I could have a real career. But you believe in me. You see what I am trying to build. And that matters more than anything. I put my arm around her shoulders. I see you, Maya. I see your talent, your work ethic, your vision. And I want you to know something important. Someday you are going to be successful. Really successful. And when that day comes, remember this feeling. Remember what it meant to have someone invest in you. Then find someone else to invest in. Pay it forward. She nodded, understanding. That is the legacy, is it not? Not just what we build for ourselves, but what we build for others. Exactly, I said. Samuel found us a few minutes later, letting me know that Grandma Vivian was ready to head home. I walked her to her car where her caretaker was waiting. Grandma held my face in her hands, looking at me with those piercing blue eyes. "You have built something beautiful, Eleanor. Not just a business or a scholarship fund, though. Those are wonderful. You have built a life filled with purpose and genuine connection. That is the real legacy. That is what matters." "I love you, Grandma," I said, meaning it with everything in me. "I have always loved you, sweetheart. I always will." As I watched her car pull away, I realized something profound. I had started this journey feeling like the forgotten child, the overlooked daughter, the invisible sister. But I had not been forgotten by everyone. Grandma Vivian had always remembered me. Samuel had chosen me. Lena had believed in me. Dr. Eris had guided me. Maya and the other scholarship recipients looked up to me. I had never been truly invisible. I had just been looking for validation in the wrong places. A few weeks after the award ceremony, I was driving through downtown Portland when I saw them. My parents walking together on the sidewalk. They looked older, smaller somehow. My father's hair had gone entirely gray. My mother moved more slowly than I remembered. They were carrying reusable shopping bags, clearly coming from the farmer's market. Our eyes met across the street. Time seemed to slow down. I saw recognition in their faces, then uncertainty. My mother raised her hand in a small, tentative wave. It was not a demand or an accusation. Just an acknowledgement. "I see you." I lifted my hand in return. A simple wave. Not hostile, not warm. Just honest. "I see you too." Then the light changed, and I drove on. I did not feel anger or pain in that moment. I felt something more complicated and more peaceful. Acceptance. They were who they were. I was who I was. We had hurt each other in different ways, and we would both have to live with that. Maybe someday we would rebuild some kind of relationship, something small and carefully bounded. Or maybe this would be all we ever had, these occasional glimpses across distances too wide to cross. Either way, I was okay. I had grieved the parents I wished I had. I had mourned the family I never got to be part of. And I had moved forward into a life I had built with intention and love. That evening, Samuel and I sat on our back porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. He took my hand and we sat in comfortable silence, the kind that comes from deep understanding and companionship. I saw my parents today, I told him. How did that feel? I thought about it carefully. Sad, but not painful. Like looking at old photographs of people you used to know. There is history there, but it does not have power over me anymore. That is growth, he said simply. I leaned my head on his shoulder. You know what the funny thing is? For years I thought I needed them to apologize to see what they had done wrong, to finally acknowledge me. And when my mother wrote that letter, when they did start to apologize, I realized it did not change anything for me. The apology was for them to ease their guilt. But I had already moved on. I had already built a life that did not require their validation. So what do you need now? He asked. This, I said, squeezing his hand. Exactly this. A partner who sees me. A career that fulfills me. Friends who show up. Young women I can mentor and support. Grandma Vivian's love. This life we are building together. That is enough. That is more than enough. As darkness fell and stars began to appear in the sky, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. From the lonely girl checking her phone at her own wedding to the woman who had built a multi-million-dollar company and a scholarship fund. From the daughter desperately seeking her parents' approval to the mentor helping other young women find their own voices. The legacy of the forgotten, I realized, was not about being remembered by the people who overlooked you. It was about remembering yourself. It was about building something meaningful from the pain of being unseen. It was about transforming wounds into wisdom, rejection into resilience, absence into abundance. I was no longer the forgotten one. I was Eleanor Vance, entrepreneur, mentor, wife, friend, granddaughter. I was a woman who had learned that family is built, not born. That love is demonstrated, not just declared. That worth is inherent, not earned. That the highest form of success is lifting others up while refusing to let anyone pull you down. And that legacy, the one I was actively creating with every choice I made, was worth more than all the approval I had once desperately sought from people who could never give it. I smiled in the darkness, squeezed Samuel's hand, and felt completely, utterly at peace. This was my life. These were my people. This was my legacy. And it was exactly enough.